Welcome to this edition of Community Accents. I'm Kim Pryor, Director of Public Information at Rockingham Community College. At RCC, we believe that we can help you wherever you are on your educational journey. We can help you make plans to complete your goals and see you through. At RCC, you can start local and go far. Today I have with me two very special people to the college. Both were students at RCC, graduates of RCC, and they spent their careers at RCC. I have Lucille Blankenship, who was registrar, and I have Hal Griffin, who was our Dean of Student Services. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what it was like to be a student. What were your first impressions?
My first impression was when I came on campus to register, first person I met was Gerald B. James, the president. He stood at the door and shook everybody's hand that came in that door. And later on, when we built a gymnasium, every registration, Gerald James stood right there at the entrance and shook every hand that came through that door and introduced himself. I said, wow, I didn't know he was the president until somebody else told me. He said, that's the president of the college. I said, you're kidding. But that said to me that from the top down, they care about students. Second person I met was Dr. Bray. And he was director of student services at the time. They didn't have deans. And he helped me with some closed classes that I had after I went through registration. So again, two of the top administrators at the college were there to assist students. I said, this is going to be different. I applied to Carolina, and thank goodness my admissions was rescinded.
Well, you got a good start here.
I did. I wouldn't have made it there.
You got a good start here. Lucille, what were your impressions when you arrived to register or get advisement?
Well, I came to the college to apply, and during that process, I was offered an opportunity to work as a work-study student. So I actually worked 40 hours a week in the summer before classes started. Now that changed along the way after that, and so 2 summers that I was here, I worked full-time. And that first summer, I was at the Police Officers Training Center, the old building, which was called the Shack, and actually printed the first catalog on the offset press. And I also helped to close down the IEC, the Industrial Education Center. We moved the library and had that information stored and worked on card catalogs and typed on transcripts. Actually helped to maintain some of those records when the IEC was still open. And coming on campus, it was a total construction area. Rockingham County red dirt everywhere. The pass to class changed every day. Because you know
where the boards were.
That's right.
So they were actually
boards
timber laying for you to walk across the dirt.
Absolutely. And classes were moved every day because they had to do the construction. We actually started typing classes on the manual typewriter because the electricity had not been installed. We did a lot as students to help make things go forward. But it was an exciting time. The college came at a good time for me to go to school, to have an opportunity to do something in the county and to be here. And it was, true for everyone else. And the other thing that was real difficult for them was the young men who had to face Vietnam. And you had a certain period of time that you had to finish your work. And I'm sure a lot of life decisions were made because of that. And life decisions, even today, are still made because of what happens in your life along the way. I was always impressed with how well that transcripts were started as soon as the college opened. As soon as you start having students and they start having an academic record, those files have got to be maintained and maintained forever. And those policies and procedures that they developed back in those days were well maintained through the years and to the benefit of the students. So it was a great place to be. There was always something going on, activities, and as Hal said, The administration was always there when something was going on. And Dr. James made a point of going into the lunchroom, sitting with students and talking to them. What are your needs? What's going on? What's happening in your life? What can we do to help you out?
And in a sense, that was attributable to the buildings that were built at the time. Lucille started in '66. I started in 1967. So they'd already completed the classroom building, now the humanities building, the lab building, and I'm not sure what it's called now, and the industrial building, the vocational building. And they were completing the library. It was not completed yet. The administration was on the first floor of the classroom building. Dr. James's office, all the administrators' offices, the dean of instruction, all of those people were on the first floor. The business office, the bookstore, registrar's office, the student food service canteen, whatever you want to call it, was there in the classroom building. And so you ran into those people every day, and everybody was so cordial. The library, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking, was located in the vocational building because the library building hadn't been completed yet. And physical education was taught in the vocational building. I took a ping pong class there under Hugh City. And because it was so compressed at the time, there was a sense of community that, as Lucille mentioned earlier, before we started this, that the culture started from the first day. And there was a culture here that, of community that continues today. And one of the reasons why I wanted to come back and work here is I'd never been to a place like that where the sense of community was so strong. I transferred to Chapel Hill, and some of the best instructors I decided to major in economics because of the economics instructor out here, Jerry Lewis. You remember him?
I do.
He was a character. I said, I want to be like that. So that's the culture that drew me back to RCC.
Lucille, you started working from the day one for RCC, and you were a student. And so that beginning as a work study must have sparked an interest that kept on for 40 plus years for you.
Well, you know, it helped me to pay for my tuition, and I may not have been able to go to college otherwise. But you know, this is a farming community. It was back then or whatever, and it wasn't always an opportunity to go away to college. And it provided an opportunity for me that I probably would not have had otherwise. And I helped give tours during those early days. You know, small as we were, as you know, prospective student, we gave tours on a regular basis and talked to people as they were coming in. So,
did you meet Ken here?
Yes.
Your husband.
She met her future husband here.
Okay.
I met my future wife here.
Okay. Well. Okay. So, in your work here, can you share with me some of memorable moments of accomplishment in your work here, or special students?
When I left Carolina, I couldn't find. I was low. I had a low draft number. I was 1A and headed Vietnam. So the first thing that people would ask me was, "What's your draft status?" And I'd tell them it was 1A. And what's your number? And it was 30. If you were less than 120 or 30, you were guaranteed a trip. Some court case in California tied up the draft so that I wasn't drafted. But there was a temporary opening here under Nixon's administration to pass the Emergency Employment Act. And Jack Garber, who was the director of student services at that time and later became dean of student services, needed somebody. His doctorate dissertation was on the Diagnostic Learning Center, which was a totally new concept in education at the time. The job of the Learning Center was not to ascertain whether or not a student could learn. It was to determine how a student learns and to adapt instruction to accommodate the student needs. No one had ever heard of anything like that before. And they hired me to be an in-reach outreach specialist for the Diagnostic Learning Center, where I would go out and talk to students if they were having trouble in class or with the subject or with anyone, a fellow student or anything. Then we'd get them into the Diagnostic Learning Center and try to formulate a learning plan for those people. So it was a unique innovation in education. While the Diagnostic Learning Center was being set up, though, I worked as an English tutor up in the English Learning Lab, which we were one of the first ones around to have that. My old high school English teacher probably rolled over in the grave if she found out I was an English tutor.
Well, you got here in time to get serious about your education. Sounds like.
Excuse me, I've got a cold.
Do you, Lucille, you mentioned that RCC provided a unique opportunity for you. I mean, we have always been a farming community, manufacturing, textiles, tobacco. A lot of things have changed, but we still are a small rural community, and we still are the place where a lot of people come to get that beginning their education and may not have an opportunity other places. Tell me about some special students that might come to mind. Tell me some success stories. Don't have to mention names, but you both worked in the student area, so I know you met plenty of our students over the years.
There's always one lady in particular with me that she came in with her son to apply. And she was out in the waiting room, and I went out and asked her if she needed any help, was interested in anything. And she said, well, actually, I've been thinking about taking some classes myself. And I ended up talking her into talking to one of the counselors. She enrolled, ended up being an honor student, and graduated. And that was always special to me that I was able to reach her that one time. But, you know, all students have their needs. We all do. Every person has their needs. And if you can find that need and help them along the way, it makes better citizens and better people along the way. And that's what, you know, the community college is about, is helping our community and our students.
One of the first major successes that I was personally involved with was a young man from the western part of the county that came in. His father was chief executive officer of a major corporation that had its headquarters in that area at the time. He was referred to us by the math, referred to the Diagnostic Learning Center by the math department. They said he seemed to be bright, but he was in what we call DSO 99 math. Is that the one? Which was adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And he was not faring well in there. So they referred him to the Diagnostic Learning Center, and you know, the first thing you think of is, what's his IQ? We tested his IQ. It was over 140, which puts him in the gray area of genius. It's right up there with Lucille and I. So the next thing you wonder is, does he have any learning disabilities, which was a new term at the time. So we gave him the Detroit Test of Learning Disabilities, which is a battery of 25 or 30 tests, and he sat there day after day doing those. No learning disabilities. So we gave him the Tennessee Self-Concept Scale, and it turns out his self-concept was interfering with his learning. If I don't think I can learn, then I don't want y'all to know I can't learn. So I don't pay attention to what's going on. I'm putting on a facade, and that cycle had to be interrupted. And we did. We spent a considerable amount of time convincing him that his IQ test was correct. And he went on to become a chemical engineer. He graduated from State College, the one in Raleigh.
The one in Raleigh. Well, I know that over the years you saw a lot of things change at the college, and a lot evolved, and hopefully getting better. And you mentioned diagnostic learning was something new and innovative. Tell me about some other situations during your employment that were innovative initiatives in education.
The whole tutorial approach at RCC, using student tutors, I didn't encounter any at Carolina, and I'm not sure how many other institutions had them at the time, but we did. There were people all a student had to do was ask for help, and it was there in one form or another. When I left to transfer to Chapel Hill and came back a couple of years later to go to work, they had completed the Student Center. And the Student Center offered the students a place where they could, there's much more to education than just your classroom learning. It gave students the opportunity to govern themselves, to make decisions that were not just who we're going to have for a dance. They actually made policy level decisions. So the Student Center, I love the description. It's college is a mode of associations, and it has to do with the people that you surround yourself with at the college. Faculty are available in their offices, so, which was, I never met my advisor at Carolina. His secretary always signed my registration forms. But here you have to sit down with your advisor to sign up for your classes, and they guide you through it, which was a real unique experience for me, the advisement system.
And you know we still do that.
Yes.
We still do that. We still do
I want to say you expect community colleges to change and to meet the needs of the community, and they have done that. But it's always something going on in activities that are going on here that makes it a good place to be. Now, I worked in student records are forever, but how you get to the end result of that transcript has changed a number of times over the years. You expect things to change and be different, and hopefully they improve as they go.
We had another young man, going back to student activities, who was a high C, low B student. But because he was president of the SGA, Cone Mills hired him he managed the Big White Oaks plant in Greensboro because of the other things that he did so well at the college. So there's just a lot of opportunities for people to grow.
Well, and you know, today we still have student government. We have an athletics that we had in the early days, and then that program dropped off, and now that's back. And we have honor societies and lots of different activities where students can get involved. And we also have a number of students, and you know this, that right out of high school, and then some who are career changers, and some, many of our students are non-traditional students, and so we're trying to provide a variety of opportunities for all of them is the community college.
I think one of the nicest things about RCC, or any community college, but RCC in particular, is that, and I told students this when they walked into my office, they're starting all over. It doesn't matter what they've done before. It matters what they do from this day on. And grades are not a function of intelligence. They're a function of effort. We've had very, very gifted people that fail miserably through lack of effort. I remember a nursing student that we had who at the time 1600 was a perfect SAT. She scored 1400 on the SAT, failed her first semester of nursing through lack of effort. So if a student wanted to put in the effort and receive any help that they wanted, then they could do whatever they wanted to starting day one at RCC. There's a lawyer right now in a county, I won't tell you where, who graduated 260 out of 262 in his high school class. Went into service, came back to RCC after he got out of service, and between 3.5 and 4.0, which was perfect. I don't know if it still is. Every semester carrying 24 credit hours. He turned it around. He started fresh day one at RCC. So it's an opportunity for someone who, so much of the public schools, and I love the public schools, but so much of the public schools is the invited learn. Those people who aren't the gifted or the invited may be passed over, and this is a chance for them to experience success.
Well, I have been fortunate enough to work with both of you, and certainly learned a lot along the way from both of you. And
Get that in writing, would you?
but in closing, do you have a most special memory in your career, something that perhaps you were serving on a committee that made extraordinary progress, or just something that was a hallmark for you?
Oh, I've got several of them, but I can come out with one. I'll let Lucille go first if she'd like to.
Well, as hard as it was to get to the point, graduation was always a highlight. You know, things had
Everyone.
settled down at that point, and you know, you could celebrate graduation, and that was a special time. I was always exhausted when it was done, but I thoroughly enjoyed the actual registration day.
Yeah, our graduation every year is special.
I want to say something about Jack Garber, RCC's first Dean of Students, second Director of Student Services. Jack created a climate that you wanted to be a student advocate. And my career went from in-reach outreach specialist in Diagnostic Learning Center to counselor, instructor in Human Resources Development Program, to Director of Student Activities, to Director of Admissions Records and Recruitment. I remember Gerald B. James coming to talk to me about switching from activities to admissions. And he finished his spiel, and I said, does it mean more money? He said, no, but it's a whole lot more work. I said, well, that sounds awfully good. But, and then from there to Dean of Students, I had always been so impressed with the people in student services and their commitment to student growth, to facilitate. We act as a vehicle. Excuse me, we act as a vehicle to take a student from where they are to where they want to be. That's the only reason we exist, and Jack hammered that in us.
One time you told me that he asked you at the end of every week, what have you done?
What have you done for students?
Well, registration was actually fun because that's the one time you got to meet everybody on campus.
It was kind of
And put it-
wild, but, but fun.
It was.
But when we moved registration to the gym, Dr. James was right there shaking every hand, as I mentioned earlier.
It was
and
a campus-wide event.
all the faculty and staff were in there at the same time, personing their little tables. I don't guess you can say manning anymore. But I think anybody that comes here will really appreciate the sense of community and the sense that they're our jobs. Students are our jobs, and if you'll let me use the present tense on that, I don't want to say it used to be our jobs. They're the only reason we exist, to take them from where they are to where they want to be.
Well, I think we're still trying to do that today. We've got a good, strong faculty and staff who I believe care about students and care about the college. And like I said in my introduction, we take you wherever you are, open door policy, and help you make plans to get where you want to be. You can start local and go far. Thank you for joining us today for Community Accents.